Hello, Akila.
Hello, ma. Now start ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. Just every ಹಾಕ್ತೀನಿ. Good. Hello, everyone. Sakrant Namaskaru. Welcome to yet another session of the Kaleidoscope series. And I'm so delighted to present my friend Renu, who's going to talk about handlooms today. Here's a little bit about her before we get started. So Renu has an undergraduate degree and a postgraduate diploma in nutrition and dietetics from JBS College in Chennai and in Vellore. She has a PG diploma in hospital administration from Symbiosis Pune, and also has a master's in psychology from Madras University. So if you think that she is a lady with varied interests, you're very right, and we are at the very tip of the iceberg. Renu loves baking cakes and breads. You should check her other Instagram account. Let me just show you. Called Renu Venkat, to see all the delicious and sinful things she cooks and bakes. She lived in Singapore during her childhood and then moved to India. She currently resides there as well, and you will see the Singaporean influence in her cooking too. I guess now is a good time to tell you about her other Instagram account. Yes, so she has 2 Instagram accounts. 6 Yards of Art is her Instagram account, where she has created a photo journal appreciating the hard work that goes into handloom sari production. Renu is very passionate about music. She has been learning Carnatic vocal music since she was 7. She learns to this day and feels that she has only learned to drop in the ocean. She has also been teaching Carnatic vocal music for the last 15 years. She co-founded Nadopasana along with a friend. It is a music group in our apartment community that conducts concerts featuring both in-house musicians as well as noted musicians and artists. They also conduct many learning sessions with these musicians. Renu is married and has 2 children, a son who is in grade 12 and a daughter who has just moved to London to do a master's research program in architecture. Renu, thank you so much for doing this session for us, and over to you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Actually, to be frank, this is the first time I'm doing something like this. And when Akila actually called me to, say that you should do something like this, I was kind of shocked. And I wasn't too sure whether I'll be able to pull it off. But let's see. So, yeah. Actually, I wasn't very knowledgeable about handloom for the longest time. My mom was an expert in handlooms, and she used to feel a sari, just see it and immediately say, oh, this is handloom, this is not good, this is very good, pure quality, and all that. Then I think in the last 4 years, suddenly I have developed an interest in handlooms and to know how the saris are being made, woven, and main thing, to find the difference between a handloom and a paolu. So, I joined a few Facebook groups, and, I started following the kind of saris they put. And, I started viewing some videos on YouTube to see how saris are woven. And then I went to my wardrobe, started pulling out each and every sari to see whether it's handloom or not, And then I realized that there are so many weaves in India, India has got so many states, and then every state has its own, special weave, and not only one, there are many. Every state has got so many weaves, and so that's how I started learning little by little. And I won't say that I know everything, but I would give you the wrong information. So yeah. So let's start. So basically, textiles, clothes, cloth has been there for almost like 30,000 years, even before that. Even in the Stone Age, there are cave paintings and pictorial evidence to say that people were wearing some form of protective covering, because obviously they still had not found out about discovered fire. They had to keep themselves warm. So they started, what they would do is they would go hunt animals, rip their skin off, use that fur as a covering, to protect themselves from the harsh weather and all that. So clothing has always been there. But then only in the 6th and 7th century, people started using fibers like from cotton and flax and wool, and they started producing material, cloth. And probably around 400 AD, silk came into being. So India has, I think today is the ideal day to talk about handloom, being Gandhi Jayanti. So yeah, India has a very rich heritage on different kinds of textiles, and it dates back to the Indus Valley civilization. That's when people started spinning their own yarn from cotton to make clothes. And even the Rig Veda has got references about weaving, and it can also be seen in our epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata. So cloth, textile has been there for ages, okay? Now, when we talk about how textile is produced, we talk about the loom, okay? Looms are of two types, hand loom and power loom. Maybe you can go on to the next slide. Okay, yeah. So hand loom is what has been there for ages. So people initially started weaving cloth by hand. It is a handmade product. So hand looms are generally made out of wood, and it is fixed. It takes up a lot of space, and it takes a lot of hard work. There are saris which takes almost like a month or 45 days to weave, So, so handloom was the original kind of loom, and it took a lot of hard work. But then with the invent of electricity and modernization and all that, people started making a loom which can run on power. So obviously it's faster, and it takes, obviously it's faster, it takes less time, and more saris can be, more fabric can be produced. Right now we are talking only about fabric. So yeah, so then power loom started. Now, when we talk about textile, how do we know which is a handloom and which is a power loom textile? So there are many things to look at, Basically, when you take a fabric, a handloom fabric will not be very neat because first of all, it's handmade, So you will see many uneven surfaces, like, on the surface, the weave will not be an exact, precise crisscross pattern, There will be some portions which are bigger, some portions are smaller. There might be knots in between. So a handloom fabric is generally uneven. There are knots, there are thread pulls, okay? The selvage of the material, like for example, if you take the sari, the edge of this is called the selvage. So the selvage will not be a straight line, unlike a power loom. If you take a material which is woven on a power loom, if you see the surface of the material will be so even, it will be so perfect. The selvage will be one straight line. That itself shows that it's not man-made. The moment it is man-made, there has to be some, unevenness. Then handloom fabrics are also very soft very resilient, you know. They can take any kind of pull and all that. Whereas powerloom fabrics will be stiff, you know. If you take a sari and it is made in a machine, it's quite stiff because it undergoes a lot of pressure by the machine. So, and even the spreading of the, okay, when you take a fabric, there is two lines, right? One from top to bottom, the other from left to right. So the top to bottom is called the weft, and left to right is called wart. Okay, so weft and wart. And yeah, so that will be very even. And then to test the softness and malleability, obviously, the only test is to drape it. You know, drape it, then you know the difference between a handloom and a power loom. So that you will learn only when you keep draping handlooms. You know, it's a different feel. You know. Then, okay, so handloom fabrics also have extra threads at the end of the pallu. If you see, so this has got what we call in, I don't know the word in Kannada, but in Tamil we call it kunjalam, you know. So, this is the extra fabric, which is always seen in handloom materials. So there will be thread coming off and all that. And then the next is the reverse side. If you reverse the sari and see, you will immediately know which is a handloom and which is a power loom, you know. And so always, I remember my mother, whenever she used to go to a sari shop, she will reverse it and see. I always used to wonder, why is she reversing, you know? But that is how you find out whether a sari is handloom or not. So when you reverse it, whatever pattern is there on top will be there at the bottom. You know, there are many shops nowadays on Instagram or online. They say ikat print sari. Ikat is never a print. Ikat is a weave. I will come to that later. You know, so basically a sari should be the same on top as well as the reverse, even when it is block printed. You know, so that is another thing. So a thing about handloom is it's very intricate, very sharp design, which especially the designs, they cannot be replicated in a power loom. Whatever design comes by weaving by hand cannot be replicated in a power loom. And many designs which have come in from Persia, there are many designs which have the influence of the Mughals, you know. There are a lot of designs which have come in from Persia, and those designs have been done by handloom. They cannot be replicated by a power loom. Okay, so that is one. And then the other important thing about handloom is its organic nature. You know, it has, they make it out of cotton or flax or wool or silk. You know, they are all organic. There is no kind of plastic in it. You know, it's so organic. So it's very good for, like, you know, when you drape a cotton sari in the summer, you know, there's nothing more comfortable than that. So that's the important thing about handloom. And so, and then there's the other thing is handlooms will have creases, will have wrinkles on it, you know, which will not be there in a power loom material. And also the power loom material, when a material is woven by a power loom, there's a lot of abrasion. Okay, the fibers become very weak. And like I said, then malleability is not there, which is there in a handloom fabric. Okay, now there are different types of handloom fabrics. One is cotton, which is got from the cotton plant. Then you have different types of silk. And you have you have mushroom silk, gaji silk, mulberry silk. There are many types of silks. Then you have linen, which is got from the flax plant. And then you have silk cotton, a mixture of silk and cotton. So those are the different kinds of fabrics. Silk, is got from the silk moths. So that is a long drawn process. But of course, nowadays there is ahimsa silk and all that. But basically, silk has been there for many, many years. It was invented in, not invented, it was discovered in China. The first silk was produced in China. So silk moths, they are kind of, before that, okay, I can go back to the previous thing, talk about the silk mark and handloom mark. So when you buy any kind of sari, if you buy a silk sari, you have to make sure this silk mark is always there. Silk mark denotes that the silk is a pure silk. Okay. Similarly, a handloom mark will also be there. Handloom mark shows that it has been produced by hand. Okay. And a lot of people have this idea that handloom means only cotton. No. Handloom can be any material. It can be silk, it can be cotton, it can be linen, So handloom means just made by hand. It does not describe what material it is. So a silk sari can be handloom with a silk mark. So nothing better than that. A silk sari has been made by hand, and the silk is also original silk. So it has a silk mark on it. So whenever we go to buy saris, these are two important things which we have to look out for: silk mark and handloom mark. Okay, the next thing is how cotton is produced. So, so basically cotton is taken from the cotton plant, and it undergoes a lot of chemical processes to convert it into, to first clean it, take out all the impurities in it, and then weave it into it should be hand woven. So the yarn which is produced from the cotton, the thread, okay, it's also known as yarn. Yarn can be made either by machine or by hand. So when you make the yarn by hand is when you use the charka, So they take the cotton, they put it in through the, to that charka, and it is woven and you get thread at the end of it. So when you say a sari is handloom and hand woven, there are two different things. Hand woven means the yarn itself is made by hand. Okay. And with that yarn, when you make a sari by hand, it is handloom. So when you buy a sari which is hand woven as well as handloom, it's the ultimate. So you find a lot of organic saris. Organic saris are extremely expensive. Why? Because of this reason. The khadi, the yarn is hand woven as well as the sari is made by hand. So a hand woven handloom sari. So these saris are very comfortable. The cotton is exceptionally soft, and it's a real pleasure to drape them. So that is production of cotton. Next, we go on to the production of silk. So like I said, silk is obtained from the silk moths. Now, when these silk moths are, so basically the eggs hatch, and the caterpillars, which are the silkworms, they are fed fresh mulberry leaves. So there's this plant called mulberry plant. And when they are fed the mulberry leaves, the silk which comes out of them is called mulberry silk. So obviously, this kind of silk is the most expensive. It is very soft, and it has a beautiful, brilliant sheen on it. So even when they make those yarns, they take out the silk from the cocoons. The cocoons are boiled and all that. Obviously, the caterpillars die in that process. But the silk which is obtained from that is beautiful. Even when they are removing the silk, you can see the sheen on it. So That's why silk is so expensive. Then when these silkworms are fed different types of leaves. So when these silkworms are fed oak leaves, the leaves of the oak tree, that is called wild silk. So when these silkworms eat different kinds of leaves, the texture and the quality of the silk also changes. You know, like once I had gone for a, slightly away from this topic, I had gone for a dietetic meet and they were promoting what is called as diet eggs. So I was wondering, what is a diet egg, you know? So actually the hens, the chickens are put on a diet, low cholesterol, low fat diet, and the eggs which they lay are called diet eggs. So apparently they have got lesser amount of cholesterol than normal eggs. So I suppose the kind of food you eat changes your appearance. So similarly, the silkworms, when they are fed mulberry leaves, they produce a very high quality and brilliant silk. When they are fed oak leaves, they give rise to wild silk, which is rough and coarse, you know, which is also known as Kosa silk, which you get in Chhattisgarh, which is otherwise known as Tussar silk. You know, so it is not soft. It has a kind of rough texture to it, you know, so that is wild silk. Then eri silk. Eri silk is, you can see it in northeastern states of India. It's very famous in Assam. The silkworms are made to eat castor leaves. So which produces castor oil, you know, castor leaves. They give rise to eri silk, and the silk is woolly and white. Even the color changes, you know. Next is ahimsa silk. I'm sure everybody will be interested about ahimsa silk. Even I wanted to know what is ahimsa silk. You know? How can you get silk without killing the silkworms? So basically, ahimsa silk is when these silkworms are not killed when the silk is extracted. You know, so I think it's a more labor. Must be a very laborious job to remove that silk. Next is Muga silk. Muga silk is also from Assam. It's very rare and it has a golden sheen to it. And the best part of Muga silk is the luster increases with age. So as your saris get older, the quality increases, you know. So when you buy it, obviously, I don't think it's going to be very soft and all that. I don't have a Muga silk and it's extremely expensive. So nothing less than 20,000. So yeah, so that's how Muga silk is. Now, other than pure silk, you get a lot of silk blends. You know, the most common is our cotton silk or silk cotton. What is the difference between cotton silk and silk cotton is that cotton silk, obviously, there is more cotton, less silk. Silk cotton is when silk is more and cotton is less. You know, so that is cotton silk or silk cotton. Then you have silk wool, where silk is mixed with wool, and you know you get a different kind of like pashmina and all that. You know, then you have art silk, that is synthetic. Please do not buy art silk; it's not good for your skin at all. You know, they have a lot of actually there's a lot of plastic in it. You know, so if you burn the silk, that's a way to find out whether the silk is pure or not. When you burn the silk, if it turns into ashes, black ashes, means it is pure silk. If it turns into a kind of a melty, a kind of a ball kind of thing, that means there is plastic in it. It is not pure silk. Then you have silk satin, you have chiffon silk, crepe silk, silk organza, brocade, a lot of things, different kinds of silk. Then you have matka silk. Matka silk is made from the waste of mulberries. So obviously it's not very smooth and it's much cheaper than a mulberry silk sari, but it is very rough. So it won't be smooth like your Kanjivarams and all that. Next we have ikat weave. I think the next slide is Ikat, right? Oh no, Handlooms of India. Fantastic. So these pictures are really good because it tells you, according to the state of India, different states, you have all the different saris. I mean, if this map was in a bigger piece of paper, it would have been great. You know, you can see exactly which kind of weave is for which state and all that. So obviously, India has got so many states, and every state has its own speciality of weaves, silks, you know. So there are many kind of weaves in India. So when I got married, I told my mother, I don't want all Kanjivrams. I want one sari from every state. My mother laughed at me. And she said, no way, you have to have only Kanjivrams. Being a Tamilian, that was a big thing. I have to have only Kanjivrams. But now, of course, I've stopped buying Kanjivrams and I'm buying all the different saris. So yeah. So India has a lot of handloom clusters. There are many, and many of these weaves have got their own geographical indication tag, which is GI tag, meaning it is special for that region. It cannot be, made anywhere else. It is their property. It can be made elsewhere, but it is their property, like a patent. So, okay, the next thing is ikat. So we have all heard about ikat, right? Ikat basically means to tie, to bind and tie. It's actually an Indonesian word, and it's a dyeing technique which is used to pattern textiles, and it employs resist dyeing. So basically what happens is the yarns, the threads are first dyed in different colors. Before that, the pattern is already made on paper. And based on that pattern, they take the yarn and dye it in particular colors. And then the yarns are put onto the loom and the thread comes like this and they start weaving, So it's not an easy job at all. It's a very intricate process. So that's why I said ikat cannot be printed. It is a weave, And when you talk about ikat, there is single ikat and double ikat. So what happens in single ikat is, weft and warp, right? So in single ikat, either the weft or the warp is dyed in a different color and it is woven. So if you see the picture on the left, the navy blue material, it is a single ikat. Okay, how do you find out? Now, so you have those lines and that design, right? If you go closer, you can see that the lines are extending out of the design only in one side, like, only horizontally. So when the lines are extending only in one direction, either horizontally or vertically, it is called single ikat. Whereas in double ikat, both the weft and the warp are dyed in different colors according to their pattern, and it is woven. So imagine the design comes like this, and the line has to go like this in the exact way to form that design. So obviously double ikat is much more expensive than single ikat. And in India, ikat weaves are found in 3 important states, meaning they are made in those 3 states. One is Andhra Pradesh, the other is Orissa and Gujarat. So they have the speciality of their own kind of ikat weave, So in Andhra, you have the Telia Rumal is, okay. So these 3 are the different kinds of ikats. The one on the left is a patola, which is woven in Gujarat. Now, patola can be of 2 types. They have the Rajkot patola and the Patan patola. Now, Rajkot patola is a single ikat. So as I said, only either warp or only the weft or the warp is dyed. So the designs are simpler, not too complicated, But a Patan patola is what is that picture on the left. Okay, that is a Patan Patola. Patan Patola, if you see, the designs are extremely intricate. Like for example, in this, you can see an elephant, you can see a lion, you can see a peacock, a parrot, all sorts of things, you know. And it is a double ikat. So both the weft and the warp is dyed. So obviously a Patan Patola, first of all, it takes a long time to be woven. It almost takes 1.5 months. And it's extremely expensive. Even a dupatta is not less than 30,000 rupees. So patola, especially the Patan Patola, is extremely expensive because of the labor intensive work. Now the second picture is a Pochampalli. So as you can see, Pochampalli is, you get single ikat as well as double ikat. The picture here is a single ikat. So if you could go closer and see, the lines will be extending only in one direction. So if I'm right, the fish you see there, that is the weft. And that is where the threads are extending on both sides, you know. Now the sari that I'm wearing is called a Telia Rumal. In this, if you see, the lines are extending this way as well as this way. You know, it's extending on both sides. So that means this is a double ikat. You can see in close up. So the lines are extending on both sides. So it is a double ikat. Now, Telia Rumal was, as the name specifies, tail means oil, Rumal is handkerchief. So basically, this design was made for handkerchiefs. Then, due to the popularity and all that, they started weaving saris. But the original method of producing a Telia Rumal is now slowly, you know, waning. There are not many families left who do this artwork. So basically, the yarns are soaked in castor oil, and then they are woven. So that's why it's called a Telia Rumal. So that's that. So, and the third one is Sambalpuri, which is from Orissa. Now, how do you differentiate between a Patola, Pochampalli, and Sambalpuri? The first thing is the pallu. The Sambalpuri pallu has a classic design. It has wheels, Konarak wheels, and then you have, what do you call, lotuses, and it has a very different kind of pattern, and it's just quite common in all Sambalpuris if you see. So they have those first few lines, and then they have that big wheel or, you know, flowers and all that, and then they have the next few lines. So characteristic design. So that's a Sambalpuri. Pochampalli is generally ikat design. You know, it's just either spots or flowers or chevron. Chevron is like, you know, those kind of V, inverted V designs. So that design is there. Patola, if you see, even the pallu is intricate, the body is also intricate. So that is a characteristic design of a patola. All the more if it's a double ikat. So that is how you differentiate between a patola, Pochampalli, and Sambalpuri. Next is, so next we come to all the different states of India. Now, all the saris that I've put here are mostly mine, like 75% of them. If I don't have it, I will tell you. So in Orissa, the first one you see on the top left is a Bomkai with a Sambalpuri. So the body, if you see the black and white portion, is the body. That is Sambalpuri ikat. And Bomkai is an extra weft design. Extra weft is, now you have the weft and the warp, right? The material is woven. After the material is woven, while the material is woven, they have another shuttle which runs across, making an extra weft design across the sari. So it looks like an embroidery on top of the material, but it's not an embroidery. It is woven during the process of the sari being woven. So that is called extra weft. The one on the left, extreme left, and the one on the extreme right. That is also a Bomkai. So Bomkai saris, they can be plain, with a beautiful pallu, or they can have sambalpuri ikat over it. Next, we have kotpat, the blue one at the bottom. Now that is a tribal weave. It is woven by the tribal people in a particular area of Orissa. So this kind of sari is an organic sari. So the yarn is taken from the cotton plant. It is hand woven as well as handloom. This sari is a very thick material and it's not at all suitable for summer in India. But because they were all in the hilly regions, they used to wear it. And it was mostly in the form of shawls, and then got changed to saris now because people want that design. So then you have Nabakoti, which is the yellow sari. It has got all the, like, as the name specifies, Nabakoti. Naba means 9. It has all the 9 religious symbols or religious or superstitious symbols. I wouldn't say superstitious. Things which mean good, like, auspicious. Yeah, auspicious symbols. So you have a mango, you have the beetle leaf, a lot of things. Whichever symbol is auspicious, those symbols have been woven into the sari. Imagine all this is woven into the sari. It is not a print. This is a particular kind of ikat which has been woven. So the designs have been woven into the sari. Imagine the amount of work which goes into this. Then you have the pasapalli. Pasapalli means chess, the art of playing chess. It is pasapalli. And it's the one on the bottom right-hand corner. Yeah. So if you can see, it has the design like Chinese checkers, So it's a kind of a game which was also played in Mahabharata. I don't know the exact word for it, but yeah, I know the Tamil word, Dayam. So that design has been replicated in this. And this kind of sari is called pasapalli. And if you see, the pallu is almost similar in all of them. They all have those characteristic Sambalpuri pallus. The next is Suta Luga, which is also, there's a place called Jagat Singhpur in Orissa, which produces these saris. It's called Suta Luga. It's actually the green one on the top second, That one is, actually it's a very cheap sari, which is normally worn draped by the farmer community in Orissa, which has now suddenly become so famous, everybody wants to buy Suta Luga. But it's a beautiful sari, if you see, and it looks so simple, yet it can be so elegant, It's a very simple sari with ikat designs as crisscross throughout the body and on the pallu. So that's about Odisha weaves. Next, we can go on to the weaves in Bengal. So Bengal has its own set of gorgeous weaves and saris. Really amazing, beautiful and intricately done saris. Now, the top left-hand corner, the blue one, is called a Balucheri. Balucheri generally has got motifs on Ramayana, Mahabharata, and then more recent was, Nala Damayanti, or you have even more contemporary designs like, you have like Mughal kings and queens. And then you have, even the East India Company influence is there on that. You have got European officers, woven into the saris. So this is called Balucheri, and it's generally in silk, and it can be in cotton as well. The weaving of those designs is specific to the pallu and the border, and all these are handmade. So that's a Balucheri. The one next to that in a biscuit color with the maroon thread work is also a Balucheri. And that one has got another design. The previous one had Ramayana story on it. This one has got Nalada Mehndi on it. So this is specific to West Bengal. The one on the extreme right is the white one is a tant. Tant, I'm sure all of you must have heard. A Bengal tant is like the lifeline of West Bengal. Like everybody wears a Bengal tant. It is such a soft cotton and ideal for their humid weather, you know. So this is a Bengal tant. And if you can see, I have shown you how the reverse of the sari looks like. Now, when you see a motif on the sari, you see the top portion of it, you know how the design looks like. But at the bottom, what do you see? It should be the replica of the design at the bottom with not too many threads hanging loose, you know. So that shows that that design has been handmade. It's hand woven, you know. Similarly, on the pallu, if you see that yellow thread is running from this end to the other end, you know, so that means it is hand woven. And if you see the top of that, this is the reverse. On the left, if you see, it is the correct side of that pallu, and you see the flowers with the yellow booties in the middle. So that is what is that yellow thread running all across the pallu. So that shows it is handmade. It is not, there are no cut threads or anything like that. So that is a tant. Next, we have a jamdani. Jamdani is particular to, actually, it was made in, Bangladesh. But once the partition happened between East and West Bengal, there were a lot of weavers from East Bengal who moved to West Bengal, or who were probably already in West Bengal. Because of the partition, they couldn't move to East Bengal, you know. So they started making, weaving this Jamdani weave in Bengal also. So you have Bengal Jamdani as well as Dhakai Jamdani. So Dhakai Jamdani is specific for Bangladesh. Now this is a Jamdani, as that photo, you know. A Jamdani weave is so intricate. It's unbelievable. This material is in muslin, okay? So just see how transparent it is. A muslin cloth. And if you see, this is how the weaving looks like. Now, if you see in close up, the thread goes across, makes a U-turn, again comes back, again makes a U-turn, comes back. So it is woven in such a way that the front and the back look the same. You wouldn't know whether you're wearing the sari the right way or the wrong way. So that shows how intricate their work is. So that is a Jamdani. Very intricate and very, of course, the Bengal Jamdanis are cheaper. The Dhakai Jamdanis are quite expensive. So that is a Jamdani. I think we are done with Bengal weaves. Next to that, the green one is also a Bengal tant. So this is a different design compared to the white one. It has got blue and maroon motifs. Also, the only thing in this sari is the motifs are not completely handloom. The motifs are by machine. So the sari is hand woven, handloom, but the motifs are machine woven. So it's a power loom motif on it. So how do you find a difference? Now, when you reverse that sari, you find in the white one, I showed that the reverse is the same as the correct side, right? In this green one, if you see, of course, I haven't put that picture, but I can tell you, the reverse of it will have loose threads. So that means it is woven on top of the sari, then cut off with the scissors, you know? So the sari is handloom, but the motifs are machine woven. So that is a different kind of tant. And the black one next to that is a Begumpuri. which is also very, it's very famous in West Bengal. It's made in West Bengal, but it's a very, the material is not as soft as a tant. It is quite rough and thick. So these are different kinds of weaves in West Bengal. The next state is, I think, Tamil Nadu. No, Andhra. Okay. In Andhra, again, I have talked about the Telia Rumal, which is very important kind of weave, which is particular to Andhra Pradesh. Other than that, you have the Pochampalli, you have the Dubaka Ikat, which is the second picture on top. That is called a Dubaka Ikat. So all these names are the names of the village in which they have been woven. Dubaka, Pochampalli is also a village. Then Mangalgiri is also a village. So, different kinds of villages have taken the design to be their own. So this is a Dubaka Ikat. The one on the left, the orange one, is a Godavari cotton, East Godavari cotton. So the design of the border is particular to that weave, So all Godavari cottons will have similar kind of border. The one on the right is a Mangalgiri. Mangalgiri is again a very soft material. It can be with zari or without zari. This one is without zari. Also hand woven, handloom sari. The one on the bottom left is a Narayanpet sari. This has a little bit of sheen to it, this cotton. And as usual, it's a very soft cotton and very comfortable. So that's a Narayanpet. And the borders are also very characteristic of Narayanpet saris. They generally have the temple border, So there are certain characteristics for certain designs. You can't go wrong. If you know that, it will be correct. So that's a Narayanpet. On the bottom right hand, you have a Ikat sari with pen kalamkari. So pen kalamkari is an art which is peculiar to Andhra Pradesh. It is seen only in Andhra Pradesh. Of course, there are many artisans who are outside Andhra now who do it. But pen kalamkari, I'll come to that later, is a very intricate process. So this sari is like half kalamkari and half ikat, best of both worlds. So yeah, that's Andhra Pradesh. The next slide is Kanjivaram. Okay, now we enter Tamil Nadu. Kanjivaram, is a city just outside Madras, and it has been like the mecca for Kanjivaram saris. So the Kanjivaram silk saris have been produced there like for ages. Now, Kanjivaram sari, like I told you, is from mulberry silk. So the silkworm has been fed mulberry leaves, and the silk which comes out of that is mulberry silk. The silk is of very high quality and expensive, and the sheen is beautiful. Now, how do you identify a Kanjivaram silk? Now, there are two important aspects of a Kanjivaram sari. One is korvai and the other is petni. Now, korvai is that part where the border of the sari joins the body. Now, if you see this sari, this is the border, okay? And this is the body. And can you see that uneven line where the body and the border join? If you run your finger through it, you can feel that it is not soft. That portion is a bit tight, okay? So that is a korvai, okay? So when the border is separately woven, the body is separately woven, and then they are joined together. So that is a korvai, very important part of a Kanjivaram. Next, you have the petni. Petni is also like how the border and the body is fixed. This is a petni, where the body and the pallu are interwoven. So that's why you see the green thread over here, the red thread over here. Okay, so it is interwoven, like an interlock weaving process. So this is called a petni. Now, in any handloom sari, Kanjivaram silk sari, these two things are very important, a korvai and a petni. Okay. Now, there are different kinds of Kanjivaram. You get those soft silks, but in that you will not see the petni. That means the border and the pallu and the body are just woven together like that. They are not interlocked. Doesn't mean it's not good. The silk can be pure silk. It's still good. But the actual Kanjivaram handloom silk sari has to have a korvai and a petni. Okay, next is all the different kinds of saris from Tamil Nadu. You have the Kanchi Pattu, which is the yellow one in the middle. Like I told you, it is a proper handloom sari with the petni as well as the korvai. This has got a temple border. So along the temple edges, you can see that it is rough, which shows that it has undergone the korvai process. Because of that korvai interlock method, you find that the edges are not smooth. So that's Kanjivaram Pattu. Then you have Kanjivaram cotton, Kanchi cotton, which is the one below that, the green one. Sorry, not that. Which one is it? The black one. The black one is a Kanji cotton. And there are many motifs which are particular for Tamil Nadu weaves. You have something called yari. Yari is the motif, the animal which has got a lion's body, horse's face, you know, with elephant's trunk. So that's a yari. Then you have the peacock, the parrot, the deer, elephant. These are all specific motifs which you find in Tamil Nadu weaves, which is not there in other weaves. So that is Kanchi cotton. Then you have the Chettinad cotton, which is the green one below the yellow. That is peculiar for the Chettinad region of Tamil Nadu. So the weavers there, so all these weaves, the names come from the region where it is made. So Chettinad is a town in Tamil Nadu, and the saris woven there are called Chettinad saris. Can be silk, it can be cotton. Then the very famous Sungadi cotton, the white one. So Sungadi is produced in Madurai, okay? And these weavers were originally from Saurashtra. So the weaving community in Saurashtra many, many years ago migrated to Tamil Nadu and settled in Madurai. And they are producing the Sungadi saris. So obviously, if you see, this has got similarity between this and Bandhani. It has got the same tie and dye method, the round circles on the body, just like a Bandhani sari, right? So this is called Sungadi cotton, and it's very famous in Madurai. Okay, then the other two saris are also Kanjivarams, just for you to see how the motifs are there. Like, you know, I explained, the designs are so intricate and so beautiful, you know, and all this is handmade. So this one, as well as the gray and black, that one has got, for a change, it's not the gold zari, it is a copper zari. So it gives an orange sheen to it, you know, and it is, it's a Kanjivaram. So if you see, the motifs are all quite similar. It has got peacocks, parrots, and everything. So these are Tamil Nadu weaves. Next, we have Karnataka. Yes. So Karnataka, the most famous, or my favorite in Karnataka, is the Ilkal sari. I really love the Ilkal sari, and they're so beautiful. They're so affordable. You want it in cotton, it's there in cotton. You want it in silk, it's there in silk. And so beautiful. And the best way to identify a handloom Ilkal sari is when you have the sari, just like I showed you the Kanjivaram, which has that petni interlocking. Similarly, in this Ilkal sari also, you have the body and the pallu, and there is interlocking which happens. So if you see in that green sari, the body of green of that sari is different color, and that small band between the body and the pallu, if you see that light green color, that is the interlocking. So when you buy an ilkal sari, you have to have that band between that pallu and the body. That shows, confirms that it is a handloom sari. I have another ilkal sari which does not have it. Initially, I was very happy I got an ilkal sari. Then I realized that it does not have a band between the pallu and the body. So this one has a band. So I know for sure that this is a handloom sari. Next, we have the Udupi cotton, which is on the right, extreme right. Udupi cotton, as I say, it is from the Udupi region of Karnataka. It's a very beautiful cotton and very, like any other cottons, it's organic and extremely comfortable and very affordable. So that is an Udupi cotton. And then in the middle, you have the Patteda Anchu. Patteda Anchu is a revival design actually. It was very famous many, many years ago. Now suddenly it has come into being again. And there are some organizations which are reviving it, giving importance and popularizing it and all that. So Patteda Anchu is also a cotton. It has got minute checks all over the body. And it's a very breathable cotton. It's really nice, very soft. But it's not as thin as other cottons. It's slightly thicker and a bit rough. But it's a very beautiful sari. So that is a Patteda Anchu. Next, we have Maharashtra. So in Maharashtra, we have the Paithani, which is the most royal sari. Like all the, if you could go through the history of Maharashtra, all the queens have worn Paithani saris. And it's again a mulberry silk sari with a very grand pallu. It has got generally birds like peacock, parrot, and all that. And the border is characteristic of Paithani. This border is, it's exclusive. Like when you see this border, you know for sure it is a Paithani. And so that is one of the weaves of Maharashtra. The middle picture is, you can see me wearing a sari. That one is called Puneri sari. So that's very popular in the Pune region of Maharashtra. It's again, either you get it in silk or cotton or silk cotton. So the one I'm wearing is a silk cotton. And it's again a very soft silk cotton and very pretty sari. So Puneri saris are also very famous. So if you go to Maharashtra, Paithani, Puneri, and you have the Belgaum silk. Belgaum silk is also very famous, of course, in the Belgaum region, but it's famous everywhere as well. So these are the three important weaves of Maharashtra. Next, we have the Madhya Pradesh weaves. You have the Maheshwari, you have the Chanderi. So the one on the left is a Chanderi and it's hand block printed. So Chanderi can be either silk cotton or silk. This is a silk cotton and it's like any other silk cotton, but not transparent. And this has Varli design block printed on it. The second one is Chanderi silk. So that one, Chanderi silk is quite transparent actually, but it comes in beautiful primary colors and it's really, really grand with a lot of zari work in it and all that. The one on the left is Maheshwari. That's also from Madhya Pradesh, but it's slightly thicker than Chanderi and very comfortable to drape. If you ask me personally, I prefer Maheshwari to a Chanderi because it is grand as well as very comfortable and not too transparent. So that's that. Next one is Rajasthan. Okay, Rajasthani weaves, Rajasthani saris, they are either silks or georgettes. You hardly find cottons in Rajasthan, you know. So they specialize in tie and dye method called Bandhani, another tie and dye method called Leheriya, and the one in the left is a Bandhani sari, which is in silk. The one in the middle is Leheriya, which is in georgette or chiffon. And the one on the right is something called Dhachola. Garchola is, again, this is the connection between Rajasthan and the Sungadi saris in Tamil Nadu, you know. So this also has the tie and dye design with the checks. The same thing is there in Sungadi as well, the tie and dye with the checks. So that's the connection between Rajasthan and Tamil Nadu. The next is Gujarat. Okay. So Gujarat's, you have saris in cotton as well as silk. The one on the extreme right is your Rajkot Patola, which is a single ikat patola. The designs are more geometric, unlike the Patan Patola, where you have, you know, figures of animals and birds and flowers and all that. Patan Rajkot Patola has more geometric designs because it's single ikat. The one in the middle is a constructed sari, in the sense the body is different, the pallu is different, and they are stitched together. So the body is a handloom cotton with the pallu, which has block print, ajrak. So that is constructed sari. The one on the left is a bujodi. Bujodi is, as the name denotes, it is woven in Bhuj. And the design is characteristic. If you see Bujodi saris, they're all the same with different color combinations. And they have those beautiful tassels on the pallu, as well as on the edge of the pallu, as well as throughout the pallu. So on the pallu, you have small, small tassels, you know, hanging all over. So that's a Bujodi sari. Next is, okay, Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh Kosa. Like I told you, Kosa silk. It is made from what do you call wild? It's a wild silk which is made by you know, from that caterpillars which are fed on oak leaves. So the tussar is it's commonly known as tussar, but if you get into it, it's called Kosa silk, which is from Chhattisgarh. So it's a kind of a raw silk, which is not very stiff, quite soft, but not as smooth as a mulberry silk. It's quite rough. So that's tussar. The next one is I think next we go on to the hand block prints. Oh no, Banarasi. Oh, the most important. So Banarasi saris, as you know, are the grandest of all saris in India, I feel. They're all made out of either pure silk. Of course, in those days, it was actually made out of pure gold, and it came down to silk. I mean, it came down to silver. Now you have half fine zari and all other different kinds of cheaper varieties. But so these saris are a brocade sari where the silk is woven all through the body. It's an extra weft, like I told you, like Bomkai. The sari is woven, and on top of that, it is extra weaving of zari. So the sari on the left, the brown color, is actually a 60-year-old sari, which belongs to my mother. And the zari is made out of pure silver. In fact, first of all, this motif is not seen anymore. This is a very, very interesting motif. And the sari was very simple, actually. The body has very small motifs, and these are the motifs on the pallu. And it is pure silver because there are many motifs which are getting tarnished because of the number of years. So as silver tarnishes, the zari also tarnishes. So that is that. The one on the center, the blue one, it's called a Valkalam silk. Valkalam. So the sari is pure silk, mulberry silk, but the finish of the sari and the way this weaving is done on the pallu, that's called Valkalam silk. So this particular sari has a satiny finish, and the design is, it has some pictures of the darbar in a palace, you know, with fountains and very intricate. And it's all woven with silk threads. So Valkalam saris are also very exclusive. The one on the right is Banarasi as well. It's called, yeah, so this has weaving throughout the body. So the entire body looks like this. It has got jala weave, meaning it's like a jal, you know, the creepers are like a net. So the one on the right is the actual side of the sari. On the left, you have the reverse of the sari. If you can see, the threads are not loose anywhere. It runs continuously. The same design which is on top is on the bottom also. So that is another signature of being handmade. Similarly, the one on the left at the bottom, which is a purple one, light purple, is also a Banarasi, but on chiffon. So even though a chiffon is light and airy, look at the work which is done on that. You know, it's woven on with silk threads and such beautiful weaving. Similarly, the one on the picture on the right is the actual side, and on the left is the reverse. So if you can see, there are no loose threads. It just runs continuously. So that's that. The next picture is, I think, one. Yeah, the one on the pink is also a Banarasi on silk cotton, and also has very intricate work. And the last picture on this slide is a gray color, which is a Valkalam again. It's a gray color with black thread work all over. So these designs are all hand woven into the sari with the hand loom. So it's different. Somebody might say it has got embroidery. This is not embroidery. It is woven into the sari. Embroidery is completely different. When the sari is already woven, finished, and then you sit and embroider, motifs on that sari. Now that is embroidery. So these are all woven. So next slide, please. Northeastern weaves. This is something which I almost forgot. I inserted it today. So, okay, the one on the left is an Assam cotton. Like Tamil Nadu has its own motifs, Northeastern saris have their own motifs. Now, these kind of motifs are specific for Northeastern saris. You know, they have a lot of, according to their terrain. So they have mountains. You can see those mountains on the saris. They have, colors and a lot of designs, which is particular to that area. So those kind of designs are seen on their saris. So this is an Assam cotton. The one in the middle is, it's called a Moirang Phi. Moirang Phi sari is from Manipur. And this is the characteristic design. The border has got the thread, the temple design. And it has got floral designs all over, either throughout the body or only on the pallu. The one on the right is called Mekhala Chador. Mekhala Chador is specific to Assam. It is a two-piece sari. Just like we wear lehenga in South India, lehenga and davani, like pawade and davani. Like that, they have the sari which is wrapped around their skirt. And then they have the pallu which goes over it like a two-piece thing. So that's called Mekhala Chador. And that's their traditional outfit of Assam. The next one, I think I've crossed the time limit, but still. Okay, there are some motifs which are seen across borders. Like, the sari on the left is a Kanjivaram, and it has got a lot of designs of animals throughout the body. That is called Vanasingaram in Tamil Nadu. Okay, but the one on the left is a Banarasi. The sari is a Banarasi, and it has the same animal motifs all over the body. But that is called Shikargarh. Shikargarh. Now, Shikar also means hunting, right? So forest. What do you find in forest? Animals. Similarly, in Tamil Nadu, Vana Singara means, Vana means forest. Singara means the beauty. So these are designs which are specific for two different states, but similar. So that's the beauty of our handloom. Next. The next one is, I think, hand block prints. Yeah. Now, these are all hand-painted drapes. Now, the sari is already been woven. And then there are particular kind of designs which are characteristic of different states. Now this one is a Madhubani. Madhubani is from Mithila, Bihar. Okay, so these generally have topics like Krishna and about his life with his gopikas and stuff like that. So this is a hand-painted sari with Madhubani print. Okay, the next one, the one on top, is a kalamkari. Now kalamkari means, kalam means pen, kari means the work, the art of. Okay, so the art of drawing a design with a pen and ink on a material, that is kalamkari. Now kalamkari prints are they are flooded in the market. Okay, they are all prints. Okay, generally screen printing, like digital screen printing. The sari is just like a Xerox machine. It's sent through a machine and the print is just, you know, done all over. That is a screen printing sari. That is not authentic pen kalamkari. Pen kalamkari is when the lady or man actually sits and draws the design freehand onto the material. That is pen kalamkari. And as I said, anything handmade is expensive. Pen kalamkari is also expensive. So that is pen kalamkari. The one below that is a Kerala mural. If you see, there is a specific kind of painting art in Kerala, which is called mural painting. So what happens in actual mural painting, they have a very thin brush and the entire picture, if you see in close up, has got dots. The entire painting is made with dots, you know. So imagine dot, 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 dot. At the end of it, you get Parvati. So that is called a mural painting. And this sari is a classic mundu, which is a typical sari of Kerala. If you see all Malayali women during festivals, they wear a Kerala mundu. It's also called Kasavu sari, and it has got mural paintings on it. So even this is now screen printed. They just feed the sari through a machine and it comes out with a beautiful piece of artwork on it. But the actual mural is made by hand. The last one is a Pichwai. Pichwai is a beautiful painting which is made in Rajasthan. That also has a lot of stories of Krishna on it. The entire thing is hand painted. That is Pichwai art. So nowadays you get saris with different kinds of paintings of India. You have Madhubani, you have Pichwai, you have Kerala mural, you have Warli art, which is from Maharashtra, you have Fad, Gond, which is a tribal painting, you have Patachitra, which is from Orissa. So amazing variety. So that is that. Next one is, I think, hand block prints. Yeah. So now block prints means you have blocks of wood with the design engraved on it, like the one on top. So the design has been engraved, carved into the wooden block, and then that wooden block is put on paint, the color, and then pressed onto the fabric. So that is hand block print. So as the name goes, it's handmade. There will be some changes in the design, you know, it won't be equal. There might be designs overlapping each other. So that is a hand block print. Now there are different kinds of hand block print in India. You find Ajrak, which is from Gujarat. You have Bagru, Bandhani, Leheriya, Dabu print, all that from Rajasthan. Then you have Sanganeri, which is also Rajasthan. So all these block prints, they have designs which is from nature. So they have leaves, flowers, trees, and then they have got stars, they've got geometric designs. So it's very difficult to actually sit and identify each and every kind of block print unless you have gone through it a million times. And then you have batik, which has come from Indonesia. You have shibori, which has come from Japan. They're all different kinds of hand block print. Next one. I think the last one is types of hand embroidery. Yes. So now once the sari is made, if the sari is plain, there are different kinds of embroidery which is done on it. And like before, every state has its own unique embroidery. You have Kanta work from Bengal, you have chikankari from Uttar Pradesh, you have Zardosi from Uttar Pradesh, which includes silk zari thread, which is made like a spring and then stitched into the dress. Then you have Ari, which is Mughal inspired. So this is Zardosi. This is Zardosi. The one on the left, top one, the white one is chikankari. Yeah, so that's chikankari. The one below the chikankari, the one on the extreme left bottom, is Ari work. So you have different types of stitches in it. Not every stitch is same. Every stitch is different if you see. After that, you have Lambadi, which is from Gujarat. The one next to the chikankari. The second one on top. Yeah. So that is Lambadi work, which is also a tribal. No, this one is Fulkari. Sorry. Fulkari is from Punjab. Then next to that, you have the handbags hanging. That one is Toda embroidery, which is from Tamil Nadu. Todas are the tribal group in Tamil Nadu, and they are found in the Nilgiri Hills. So this is their kind of embroidery. The extreme right is the Sisha work, which is from Rajasthan, mirror work embroidery. And also, it also has the Kachi embroidery, which is from Gujarat. And all this is handmade. Imagine the entire cloth is spread out and there are ladies sitting around it and they have their designated portion of the sari and they're sitting and embroidering it. So that is that. The one below that, the white sari with the pink embroidery, that is called Kachi work, which is from also Gujarat. So that is also handmade. Below that, you have the, that one is the Shisha work of Rajasthan. It has got mirrors fixed to it. Next to that, the green one is our very own Kasuti, which is from Karnataka. Very intricate and very pretty embroidery, which is really amazing. Yeah, the one above that is the Parsi Gara. This is an exquisite embroidery work. It's made out of satin stitches and very expensive. It is made by the Parsi community and it's very common in Gujarat, Maharashtra and all. So that is that. Then you have the Kashmiri embroidery. Then you have Gotapati, which is in Rajasthan. Okay, the one right in the middle, the orange one is the Kanta work, which is from West Bengal. It's a very pretty, again, hand embroidered. These are basic chain stitches. But imagine with the simple chain stitch, they have made such amazing designs. So yeah, so those are the hand embroideries that you can see in India. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I've done as much as I know.
This was really amazing, Renu. As you talked about it, we could, at least for me, definitely, I was like, oh my God, is this even possible? You know,
it's amazing. Yeah, the amount of work that goes into making a sari is no joke.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just unbelievable. So if anyone has any questions for Renu or any comments that you want to make, please unmute yourself and you can ask.
I was just thinking, you know, I would never dare question Akhila again about why the price of the sari is this much.
My husband has given up.
Very good one. Good that you included Dam, Akhila. I should have included Raj as well.
Renu,
yeah,
so amazing. Like everybody else over here feels and has said, you know, this was very, very informative. And for me, I haven't been so interested in saris just because, you know, you just go to a shop, you pick whatever color and whatever design you like, and then you just pick it up and then just wear it. I hadn't paid much attention to, you know, the work behind it or the or appreciate the intricacies that are in a sari. So this has definitely opened my mind to a whole new world of appreciating sari. So thank you so much for doing that for us today.
And also,
I
we
had-
should not forget about the weavers. You know, the amount of hard work that goes into a weaver's work. And we end up buying it from any shop with a hell of a lot of overheads and extra costs attached to it. And I really wonder if the money goes to the weavers. So as far as possible, I think we should all try and buy saris directly from the weavers.
How do we ensure that? How do we know we're doing the right thing?
So, I mean, there are particular sari shops which, first of all, we should know how to identify whether a sari is handloom or not, right? So try and not buy saris which are power loom. Okay, so try to chuck all the power loom saris that we know. Then next thing is get it from shops which are well known for their handloom saris. You know, there are many shops which sell online now on Instagram and all that, but we should make sure that their quality is good. So it's from word of mouth, you know, you speak to your friends and you come to know about it. And only then we should buy. We cannot just like that, just because a sari looks beautiful, we buy it and then we end up with a fake sari.
Right, yeah. So could you repeat again how we identify the right kind of handloom and everything, if you don't mind?
So first thing is you see how the sari feels. You know, the sari should not be perfect. Okay. The silk or cotton will have minor flaws in it. Like there might be a knot here and there. You know, there might be a thread pull. You know, so all that is fine. If it's handmade, all that will be there. The other thing is the selvage of the sari. Like I said, this is the selvage, right? In a handloom sari, it will have holes. See, like for example, there is a hole here. You know, so these holes will not be in exact distance. Like you will see holes maybe 1 centimeter apart, the next hole will be 2 centimeters apart. It's not an equal uniform distance between those threads, between those holes. Those holes signify that when the cloth is being woven, it is put on the edges of the loom, right? So that the marking of that hole will not be uniform. And the other thing is your selvage will not be a straight line. There will be slight changes in the selvage. So these are all important things when you buy a handloom sari. Of course, you cannot do the burn test in a shop. They'll throw us out. But then we, just by feeling the sari, we will know.
Yeah. I think over time we'll also learn.
Over time, yes.
The right one. Yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
Suma, go ahead. Sorry, Ma'am. I just saw that Suma also had a question.
Is someone else asking? Can I go?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for this session, Renu. In fact, I'd messaged Akila saying I'm unwell. So I might stay just for about 15-20 minutes and drop off. But I stayed for the whole thing. And I think I'm already feeling better. But I just want to make these two observations because I'm very interested in you know, the environment and stuff like that. So it's amazing how there's so much nature that goes into everything that's made, right? Like in all our Indian handlooms, there's so many motifs that are inspired by nature. So that kind of connects us back to nature. That's one thing. The second thing is this is such an important topic to kind of address because fast fashion has just taken over. And
true, yeah.
Like this shows how much effort actually goes in, and you know there's so much that people are putting in, and that costs you money. So if you're getting something for cheap, then maybe you're not causing something good for yourself nor for the environment. So I think that was such an important takeaway, and I want all of your saris. So I think I'm going to give up my minimalism and just, you know, take up owning a lot of saris now.
Yep, this is a difficult thing to do between minimalism and wanting everything at the same time.
Exactly.
So.
It's very difficult.
Yeah. So, but do you know? I just had one quick question. You know any shops in Bangalore that are like really good for like these kind of handlooms and stuff?
I like Prasiddhi. Prasiddhi Silks is very good.
All right. Great.
And then even that famous shop, what is that? Angadi.
Mm-hmm.
Angadi also has very good saris.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Noted. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Nanma.
Thank you, Renuka ji, for a very nice presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
The topic on this kaleidoscope session, I just thought whether I will be a misfit into this topic and my wife should join. For some reason, she did not join, but she has been using handloom cotton saris for the last 35 years of her service in the bank. And she was known for wearing cotton saris.
Okay.
And many times I had the occasion to accompany her to shops, and I always wondered why so much of time is taken by her to select one sari. Now, today I have the answer for it. So thank you very much for the presentation.
It's not only for ladies, even for men, your dhoti has to be handloom.
Yeah. It's, another thing. See, it is not just the saris, even though the topic is really concentrated on the saris. There are I used to go for these towels and
yes.
And then these dhotis, especially the Emignur, the old Emignur near this Karnataka and Andhra border.
Okay.
They had the very good towels, white towels. Dhotis. I've been using them for a long time, and
right.
A banker. We had the occasion to finance so many weavers
right.
in our area, but that is almost dying now. There are no schools to teach, and only it is hereditary. And in my brother-in-law's place, one is called Salekeri. That is the street was occupied by the weavers.
Weavers.
Yeah, they were called Sales. So that was there, and whenever those days we had to walk through the streets, and always that rattling, tuck, 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 tuck.
Yeah, correct.
So I just recalled all those things. Thank you very much for the nice presentation.
Thank you so much.
And telling about our culture and heritage of India is also represented in these handloom.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Renu, maybe we should talk about something for men. You were talking about dhotis. Dhotis are coming, of course, available in cotton and silk and all of that, right?
Correct. So dhotis, yeah, cotton. I think we have Co-optics in Bangalore, right? In I think it's in Commercial Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, Co-optics has amazing dhotis, very good quality, and even like Uncle said, towels, bed sheets. They are all are handloom.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
My parents gifted Damu a Mysore silk dhoti, which he has hardly worn, but it's available.
Yeah, so like someone said, Ramraj. Yes, Ramraj Veshtis are handloom.
That's good to know. At least that's one thing we've done right, seems like.
About maintenance and washing of or keeping these things intact when they are ready, that also becomes a very important aspect of
yes.
You throw some light on this, how to maintain.
So cotton saris, and of course dhotis are very easy to maintain. There's no color which will run and all that. But when you take saris, what I follow is the first, of course, you don't wash your sari immediately after one wear, right? You wear it 2-3 times. The first time you wash it, just dip it in salted water. Okay, like half a bucket of water and about 2-3 tablespoons of salt. The water should be salty. Just dip the sari in that take it out, squeeze it and dry it. So the salt will prevent the color from running. After that onwards, you can wash your sari at home itself. It's up to you whether you want to put starch or not. And it's very easy to maintain cotton saris. And I follow the same thing with my silk saris also. After the first 2-3 times that I've worn it, I wash it in salt water. Then after that, of course, the first 2-3 times I dry clean it. Okay. Once I've dry cleaned about 3 times already, then the first wash is in salt water. So that makes sure the color fixes. After that, I wash it in a little bit of shampoo and softener. So the sari remains soft and the zari also doesn't fade. And I iron it at home. Of course, if you have an iron man, then you can give it to him to iron. But here we don't have that facility, so I iron it myself.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, good.
Hello, hello, Renu.
Hi. Hello, Auntie.
Akhila's mother.
Okay.
Do you understand Kannada? I will talk in Kannada.
Oh, you can ask. I will translate it.
Yeah.
No, ನಮ್ಮ ಕೆಲಸದವಳ ಗಂಡ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಮಗ್ಗ ಅಂತ ಹೋಗ್ತಿದ್ರು ತುಂಬಾ ಹಿಂದೆ. ಈಗ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವಿರೋ ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ತುಂಬಾ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಲೂಮ್ಸ್, ಪವರ್ ಲೂಮ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ಅವಳು ಆ ಲೂಮ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳುವಾಗ ನಂಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಇವಾಗ ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದ ಇಷ್ಟು ಲೂಮ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ವಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಈ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಂತ ನಂಗೆ ಈಗ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತು.
I understood that.
ಅವಳು ಯಾವಾಗ್ಲೂ ಹೇಳುದು ವಾರ್ಪ್ ಈ ತರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ಲು. ಅವಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ಅಷ್ಟು ಅನಿಸ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಇವಾಗ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ವಾಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಎಷ್ಟು ನಾವು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿದ್ದಿದೆ ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಫಾರ್ ದ ವಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್.
Thank you so much, Auntie.
She was saying that her
maid
and family and all, they used to go for handloom. The loom is called magga.
Okay.
So at that time, she never knew what they are up to and what it is all about. And only today she got
right.
that it actually takes so much effort to that.
Right. So when we hear them saying, "Oh, we are going to garments for employment," I think it's a power loom, I guess, right? I think that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Totally.
Power loom.
Okay. Now I get it.
Okay.
So that's a problem with weavers' children now, because not many people are going in for handloom fabrics like saris or dhotis or whatever. Those children, they want to drop that occupation and they are looking for jobs elsewhere, which is like affecting the weaver community.
Yeah. Yes, Shrikantana, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for this session. I had a question. I was in Tripura, and my friend actually took me to one of the shop, and there they prepare the sari out of the yarn is made up of banana, stem actually. I just want to check, is that, made out of handloom or it is power loom?
So the yarn, the thread is taken out of the banana fiber.
Okay.
So you get yarn out of different plants now. You get it from custard apple plant. You get it from banana fiber. You get it from lotus stem fiber. So it's the source, the raw source is that plant. But the fiber which is taken, it is processed and made into a yarn. And with that yarn, you can use up a handloom.
Okay.
So only the texture of that fabric will change according to the plant from which it has come.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Very interesting. Cool. Anyone else has any questions? Else we can let Renu go because it is like 10 o'clock in the night for her.
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't even know how long. I mean, I thought I was, taking too much of time.
No,
I kept checking the clock.
This is just perfect, Renu. Cool. I think that's all the questions that we have. Renu, once again, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having the trust that I could do it. It's the first time I'm doing something like this.
You've taken us to this wonderful world, and I'm sure everybody will be very, very, aware the next time they are buying something, and they'll be asking all these questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Renu.
Bye-bye.
Amazing session.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.